see if I can
Hello everyone to Wing Talk. We are without Steve again today, so I'm your host as last month as well. We have a few topics we want to talk about today. First of all, of course, we go through all our guests. Let's start with the two south coast of England guys, Darren and Luke. Darren, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I've been out flying today, so I'm happy.
That sounds good. Yeah, I just came from flying, but we can talk about that in a minute. Just let me... Yep, here we go. Luke, what about you? Did you fly recently?
I flew a few days ago, I think, but I haven't really done much flying recently, no. Too busy with work, weather not being good enough, standard excuses. So I need to do more flying.
Yeah, you see, I should have done like Glenn did. He just came to Germany and we had fantastic weather. Besides yesterday we had some thunderstorms, but beside that we had a few nice flying days. And we have a guest with us today again. We had him on the show a while ago already, and now he is back. He is Grunkle FPV.
Hello. Yeah, I've not got much flying in lately either. I have a better excuse than the other two though. I'm relocating, so I'm surrounded by boxes, and the last things to get packed up are the planes, in case I get a chance.
So you have your priorities,
but yeah,
you have your priorities right then.
Where are you relocating to, roughly?
So down to Devon. So
okay.
Yeah, the deep dark south of Devon.
So we need to get a flight in before you go too far away then.
Sorry?
We need to get a flight in, with Michelle and whatever before you.
We haven't got long because I'm packing up and going on Wednesday evening. Well, Thursday morning.
Oh, we've left it a bit late for that then.
Yeah. But we'll sort something.
Yeah.
Okay, it sounds great. So, yeah, as I said before, I will be your host today, so you will see my face a bit more than usual. We talked about flying time, so also for the chat, if you are just joining, just write in the chat when how much flying did you guys get over the last days and weeks. I hope it was a bit more than here. I mean, I'm not sure how it's in the UK right now, but for us, it's more like it's either burning hot, so you don't want to go outside at all. Otherwise, you get a sunburn and look like, you don't see it on the camera well, like after an hour, completely red. Or it's raining and thunderstorms, basically just switching between these both extremes. So it's really hard to get some flight time. So
I don't know, it's been windy. I think that's been the main problem. It's been quite windy. We have had some bad rain, but it's only been the odd day. But yeah, today I went out in jeans and was baking. I didn't expect it to be this hot. So yeah, I'm in shorts now, but yeah, absolutely boiling today. You're muted, Mark.
Can't hear you, Mike.
Yeah. Sorry, I have to mute a bit because my fan is running, because today is one of these boiling hot days, unfortunately. And as you can see, I'm in an attic apartment on the southeast side, so it's not very good. When I arrived at home from the FPV event, my room was 36 degrees because, of course, I had the windows closed. And we had 29 outside. It wasn't very pleasant. Yeah, speaking of the FPV event, Darren mentioned it in the thumbnail. Surprised me a bit with that. So I think we can quickly talk about that. I think I have not posted much about it this year. I also had some trouble, unfortunately, getting proper footage. But here in Germany, we have a Grumpy Old Nerd. Yes, this is the fresh shirt. I have a few of them, luckily. Yeah, Grumpy Old Nerd was also on that event. In Meppen in West Germany, it's close to the Dutch border. There's an old gas power plant that was abandoned or was decommissioned, and it was reused as a entertainment, off-road fun park, mostly for motorcraft. Like you can go there with quads, with dirt bike. There's also a racetrack, a car track, everything where you can have fun with any big man's toys. And there we have the 5th time now. Yeah, I think the 5th time in total. A big FPV event where a lot of FPV pilots meet, mostly quad pilots in the beginning, but now we are getting more and more wing pilots in there. And we fly there, and there is a big cooling tower that has the, I think, biggest world map painted. Yeah, it has the biggest map of the world in the world painted on the outside of that cooling tower. I can try to find a quick picture. I had the Instagram open. If you guys have Instagram, you can check it out by clicking this link, if I can find the window. So this is the hashtag for the event, and there are people posting videos, pictures, and all that stuff. It's really cool. And as I said before, it started mostly as an event for quad pilots. In the past, I'm not sure how many there were on the first year, because I was not there, only since the second one. And then we were like 70, 80 pilots, and this year we had 120 FPV pilots there. And that was, by the way, the cut. So if we would have not set a limit, we probably would have like 200, 300 pilots there. But then you won't get any flight time, of course, because we only have 8 available channels where we can fly. And yeah, it was a very fun weekend from Thursday to today. Today I just left early to be home ready for the wing talk, of course. And I just had a 5-hour drive before we started here. But yeah, this was my weekend and the last days, and I guess I will put out a little bit of footage over the next days.
Yeah, but more importantly, how good were those steaks?
Oh, these steaks were good. There was Glenn brought a nice Irish steak, I think it was, with him, and we made that and gave it to Grumpy. And we got some nice steaks from the supermarket on the gas grill. Yeah, they were. We enjoyed them.
Cool.
Okay, so Darren, you had any big FPV stuff going on lately? If the weather allowed it.
Not really. We sort of had flying today. That was about it. I suppose the other weekend, got the Baby AR Pro up, which, brilliant little plane. That's what I was flying today as well. Just 36 minutes on a little 3S. Brilliant.
By the way, I unfortunately burned out the motor on my Baby AR Pro in Meppen. On the second flight, I think, or was it the first or second flight? It is undersized, especially for 3S. It can handle like long level runs at full throttle on lithium ion. That's fine. But when I climbed like for 10 or 15 seconds at full throttle straight, and suddenly power cut, and the motor was toast, unfortunately. So yeah, that's something they have to work on.
Yeah, I've seen that quite a bit actually, and I'm thinking that maybe the second flight on the first maiden attempt was just the motor just blowing up, because it was literally 2 launches and that was it. It was done. But no problem with the 1507. But then I worked it out. It's like a 25% bigger stator. So it's like a millimeter extra each way, but it's quite a bit bigger stator. But yeah, this thing's flying full throttle, no issues.
Yeah, and the funniest thing was there was another guy on the event also with the Baby AR Pro. He also burned his motor on his 3rd flight, I think.
Yeah.
So the same happened.
Sounds like I've got a real problem then.
There's definitely an issue, and I think I have to get in touch with them on Monday.
Yeah, definitely a bigger motor.
Yeah.
Luke, just to ask Darren, how does it compare to the original AR Mini?
I've retired it. It's for me, it's just much better. Yeah, just flies better, easier to launch. I mean, but to be honest, the original was easier to launch anyway. But yeah, hitting CG was a bit harder. But I think with a 21-700 for it, it'll be fine. But yeah, no, it's just a lot more refined, I think, is the best way to put it. I mean, the original one, the motor was, even though it was a Racer Star, it was really good. It was nice and efficient. So I think a similar size still probably would be better for the baby.
What is the size on the baby? Is it a 1406?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit small for a plane of that weight. So
I think it's basically the same motor as for the Dart 250G, but with a 3800 kV winding on it. So just a little bit thicker wires. But on 3S, it just can't keep up with the cooling. That's the main problem, I think. Black Moses in the chat. Do I need a flight controller with Barrow for basic return to home function? No, you actually don't. INAV can navigate without barometer. You just need a GPS. But of course, the altitude stability will be lower, so it might fluctuate a lot and not fly very stable, especially then later in the loiter, if you have GPS altitude only. So, Luke, you any big FPV stuff going on, or flight stuff, or still very busy with your job alone?
Yeah, I really haven't been up to too much, to be honest. I flew not particularly INAV or FPV related, but I flew the Robbie Amplitude a few days ago on 12S and threw a prop blade and pulled the motor out of the fuselage, or ripped the motor out of the fuselage. So that was what I was fixing yesterday. Other than that, I've not really been doing too much flying, so no real news, unfortunately. I really need to get back into flying some proper FPV.
Yeah, it's about time, I think, before the summer and the season ends and the permanent bad weather comes in.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like we've already had a bit of that permanent bad weather. It's not like it's been bad, but there's always just been something that's, stopping it from happening, whether it's that it's been a 50% chance of rain all day, it doesn't actually rain all that much, or high winds, or way too hot, so you don't really want to go out. It's just not really happened.
I'm muted again. Sounds about right. It's very similar here. Crunkle, what about you? Do you have any recent big FPV experiences?
Yeah, not as much as I'd like. Blaming weather and all the other stuff. And the thing I have been doing, which has been quite interesting, is and Darren's part of that now as well, is testing some of the walk snail firmwares. So they seem to be quite keen to get it right. So we've been doing that, but I just haven't done as much flying as I'd like to on that one. But that's it's been quite interesting, and the weather's been so shocking this summer that I've been just fighting buying more planes, I think.
I bet that's been difficult.
Yeah, it is though, isn't it? I mean, we always buy more when we're not flying. It's this cruel twist of the hobby.
Or when you crash stuff. I mean, that also can happen.
Yeah, you crash things and you need to buy 2 planes just so you've got a spare when you crash the next one.
Especially if it's one you really like.
Oh yeah, that's the reason why I still have a spare AR Pro in a box. When I built up a brand new one, then Glenn hit me last year and just bit a little bit out of the aileron and cracked my prop, or the prop was just loose. Yeah, he bit a piece of my aileron just so it doesn't look good anymore, and I had to patch it, and that was enough reason for me to just buy a new kit, but now it's still in the box. So I hope after your relocation you find more time again. I guess this
absolutely.
Also takes a lot of time.
I'm going to have all the fun of finding new flying spots. So that's going to be the hardest thing about relocating, is all these places I've found, little hidden nooks and crannies of Sussex, I'm going to have to say goodbye to. And Devon better watch out.
Is it? Do you move far away?
It's from here. It's about 3.5 to 4 hour drive. So
okay.
I don't know what it is in miles. So
it definitely takes away your flying spots from you.
It does, yeah. But
yeah.
There'll be new opportunities.
Should be spectacular.
I want to get one last flight in from the coast here before I go, just to say goodbye to it properly.
Yeah, makes sense. And put out a good video about it.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, FPV experience so far looks good. So we had mixed experience, especially with the weather. I think that's a problem for most of us. Let's begin with our main topic. INAV, especially INAV 7.0 development, on full going right now. For some reason, some of our developers have a lot of time currently and develop very cool features. And just after the Wing Talk last month, we got the information and the first video out from Shota Hayashi, who is the developer who brought the artificial horizon drift fix to us. And he is on it again and develops INAV VTOL support for vertical takeoff and landing planes. And for some reason, this started a massive VTOL hype now. Would you agree, guys?
Yeah. I think the hype was always there. It was just waiting for INAV to find it.
So you mean it was all the time boiling, and then someone opened the cap of the cooler?
Yeah, I mean, I discovered VTOL fairly late, like the last year and a half or so, but I love it. It's so good. It just opens up so many more opportunities. So my little T1 behind me, I'll often just leave that in the car, and I'll be driving along, and you can see somewhere that looks interesting, and I take off from the roof of my car, and I know I can land on that again. So who needs a flying spot? Everywhere is a flying spot.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also thought about some things like planes, for example, especially the twin motor planes, like the T1. If you have a powerful setup on that, in theory, you could just set it up as a tail sitter, hold it in your hand, arm it, and then launch it basically vertically out of your hand, and then come back in and just grab it. You don't have to have a landing gear or something. You can just launch it vertical and land in your hand with it, with this kind of setup. And I think the control surfaces behind a powerful motor setup should be big enough for that.
Yeah, I reckon so. That'd be fun.
Yeah. And
I need to buy a T1.
Say again?
I said I'll need to buy another T1 just for that.
Oh yeah, just to try that out. Yeah,
it's simply not the way, right? It's just what you've been forced into doing.
I know. Testing purposes.
Yeah,
there's no way around it. Yeah. The Atom RC Penguin is also a good candidate for that, especially because it has the long wing chord, very deep wings, and the ailerons are far back, so you could use them as an aileron mix in tail setter configuration. Might be interesting to see if that works. Caroline Tyler or C in the chat, INAV 7 needs to be hummingbird and they can fly vertical. we actually have some discussion about the INAV 7 name in the Discord, but we didn't decide yet. INAV FPV, who needs autopilot when you have INAV 7? I won't answer that. No, I won't. Fun fact, we had one guy in Meppen who had a T1 VTOL with autopilot on it. But the guy is in both autopilot and INAV pretty much beginner. He has had massive tuning problems on that in hover mode, so it was oscillating very strongly. But it was kind of fun to see it hovering around. So when he was just walking behind it and the T1 was hovering in front of him, going to the actual launch spot and then going into fixed wing mode. was a funny look. I wonder how that will work then with INAV, especially on bigger planes. I know that Shota has some had some problems in the simulator at least, but the multi-rotor physics in how's it called, rear flight?
Yeah.
In a rear flight is a little bit wonky, so it might be completely different later in reality. But we will see how that goes. Interesting is also that the poll we made in the INAV, or Sean, I think did the last vote in the INAV fixed wing group regarding who wants to try a VTOL, was heavily weighted towards people wanting to use it or want the support and will build a VTOL or have a VTOL already. I remember I did this exact same poll like a year ago, and there it was like 1% actually interested in VTOL. So I think there was a shift over the last year. I'm not sure why, but there was a massive shift.
I have no reason to, no data to back this up, but I feel like it was all the He-Wing T1 Ranger.
I was going to say the same.
Yeah.
It's such a great plane to do VTOL with. It's reasonably priced, you know. Yeah, I feel like that was really what did it.
Yeah. When He-Wing brought their own VTOL kit out for it as well, and just made it so much easier for people.
Yeah.
Probably. I think in the past, and that was also my feeling, was that VTOLs are incredibly expensive, because usually people think of like these big 1.8, 2 meter, 2.5 meter, 5, 6, 7, 8 kilogram UAVs that need massive motors, massive props, and basically you put like 2,000-3,000 euros just into the equipment to lift that thing. Krunk is just grabbing something here.
What, one of these?
Oh yeah, exactly. Can you say something so the camera switches to you?
Yeah. So here's one we made earlier.
Yeah. So I think this is what in the past most people thought of, and then you get into very, very expensive territory. But with small planes like the T1 Ranger, it actually makes sense to have it for a casual flyer, especially if you're like living in the city and you want some park flyer where you just skim above the trees, for example, but you don't have a real landing spot. It might be really useful there. So we have mostly shared the development videos. Or Darren, do you have any update over the last days when I was absent?
I've not really seen any updates. I think other than there's been a few updates to the pull request, but nothing major. But yeah, all the videos are up there. There's a couple of videos that Shudder's posted and look really cool. And especially I like the whole fact that it's doing the whole transition now in return to home automatically. That's a pretty cool feature. So it will fly back in plane mode, so it's more efficient, and then can change to quad to land. And I was saying to Marc or in the Discord that it should do a run in and brake rather than just coming in slow. Just full power straight in, then bang can pull it round to brake and turn into a quad. It just outshine everything else.
Yeah, it's actually it's actually funny. I didn't realize that in the first place when I saw that video where he had this stadium map on the simulator, and the VTOL came in, and then basically when it started to switch, it made like a 180 turn to brake, and then hovered back to the landing position and touched down. I was first a bit confused, but then I realized this is the fixed wing loiter entrance it did. So it comes home as a fixed wing, and therefore it also goes into that distance to the home point to start the loitering around it. And at that point, instead of starting to loiter, it navigates to that entrance point. But instead of starting to loiter, it switches into VTOL mode, and then of course has to turn around to face the home point, and this is why it makes this 90-degree like drift braking maneuver, and then hovers back to the location. One second.
Yeah, the other thing with VTOL is there's stuff like this coming about now, which is dirt cheap. So this is obviously going to sort of introduce people. I mean, I don't know how good it is or anything like that, but it's 126 quid. It's not much more than a standard P&P plane. So, I mean, it looks interesting, but how well it flies, who knows? But yeah, stuff like this will only sort of help VTOL grow, I guess.
I cannot really share my screen now for some reason. Sorry, Darren.
That's right. I'll put a link in the chat.
Yeah, put the link in the chat.
I've had a few FPV drones, and they've been actually quite well made. So it'll be interesting to see what that's like. I think it's their first foray into fixed wings. So
yeah,
interesting.
Definitely looks interesting.
It's cheap though.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at it like that, it's the cost of the He-Wing VTOL kit.
Yes.
So on its own. So
yeah. You're going to get one then?
Maybe. We'll see. I need to pay some naughty tax first, so it might not be till next year, but who knows?
I like
that. It's a naughty tax. What's that, Darren?
Yeah. It's a slap on the wrist tax.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I don't think that I will build my T1 into a VTOL, because I'm so incredibly happy how this plane flies. We had the chance when I was in Meppen this year, the first time, to have the racetrack, the full-size car racetrack, to be open. And some of us fixed-wing guys bashed the racetrack, and I just followed the track all the way with the T1. It was so much fun. And even chased a nitro motor-powered RC car over the track. At 65 kilometers per hour, I was directly behind the car. I will post some footage of that later. So yeah, my T1 will stay definitely a fixed wing. If I want to build a VTOL, I might get a second one for that specifically, because the extra drag, yeah, that's nothing I want to have from the fixed motor.
Let's see, you've already justified the purchase now.
Yeah, kind of. I need to get rid of one of the two ZOHD drifts then to make room. Yeah. So what about the chat? Grumpy old nerd. Roman started it and He-Wing copied it and messed it up. The He-Wing kit is mediocre at best. Yeah, I cannot say much about that. I haven't really checked the quality or compared it at all.
I haven't had either of them in hand, but I do somewhat agree with his comment that, you know, Roman was the first one to do it, and he did make a really nice kit, and He-Wing did only copy it. But at the same time, they, you know, as much as I hate to support someone that's, you know, copying work and all that kind of thing, it is convenient. So, and it does work pretty well. So, yeah, and for what it's worth, I got the He-Wing kit rather than the Roman's one, as bad as I feel about it. So.
I mean, it depends on, I would say, what you want. I bet Roman's kit is much more robust at the end if you print it properly. The question is, what else can be bad or better on the VTOL kit if it just works to switch between hovering and not hovering?
Yeah, I've had both Roman's kit and the
so you can have a good opinion on it then.
So yeah, I bought Roman's kit when he first released it, and because I'd crashed my T1 and broken the motor mounts, and I thought I'll convert it to VTOL, and then life got in the way. It sat on my desk, and eventually I sold it to a friend, and I think it's still sat on his desk, unbuilt. And then I thought I had some time. I thought I'll get back into VTOL. And I went down the He-Wing kit route because it was just convenient. I could just bolt it together. And I think what appealed to me initially was because I'd never done anything with VTOL before. It was all there. It would just bolt together. I knew I wouldn't mess up. And it was that perceived ease of use that appealed for me. But yeah, as Grumpy Old Nerd says, the plastics on the Hewin kit are quite brittle, and they work. The kit works fine. I mean, I'll grab mine. What I quite like about them is, the servos are good quality servos, but where they break on the original mountings are just where the screw holes go here. So these are actually 3D printed ones that Josh Galt, I think Bandit FPV goes under, he designed. So I've already changed the stock parts. In fact, most of this is now modified from how it was. But to get me started, the Hewin kit was actually quite an easy route into VTOL, and I think that's its main accolade. Really, it's just very much plug and play.
Yeah, I think the other thing is the weight saving, because Michelle at work has Roman's kit, and he was comparing it to someone else's. I think it was Chris's, who had the Hewin kit, and the weight difference was quite substantial. But obviously, the weight in Roman's kit is the strength and how long it's going to last. So it's
okay. Good. Sorry, I was just looking up some other things in the meantime. Yeah, but so in general, the Roman's version is much more robust in case of a hard landing as well, I guess.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
Yeah, Grumpy also says in the chat, vibrations are directly translated into the servos. Roman's kit does decouple the slewing mechanism. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Especially, are the stock Hewin servos metal geared or plastic geared?
They're metal. I think they're DW. So DW, is that right? Yeah, GDW.
Okay. So at least some good servos, and not Tower Pro.
Yeah.
Tower Pro.
Tower Pro, yeah.
Old MG90s.
Yeah. Bangor Special MG90Ss or whatever.
Yeah, sounds about right. Okay, Guzua C. Any other features going into INAV 7 that are worth a mention? Worth a mention, yes, but unfortunately, it's still not something we can talk about because it's not official that it will go into INAV, as it is how can I say that? It's a commercial feature request, so it might be that it does not come, but we hope that it comes. I think
commercial feature request.
Yes.
So, as in, there's a company using INAV and they've asked or they've paid a developer to develop it.
Exactly. They pay the developer. They have a developer contract. They get special features for them implemented into INAV, and I'm currently waiting for the go that they release that into the official INAV code as well.
I don't understand exactly what open source means and what even type of open source INAV is using, but I thought typically with open source, if you're using a project and you make a change, you have to release your change back, or is that not the case with INAV?
Well, there are some mixed opinion on that, but I also
is this a good can of worms to be opening, or should I?
Yeah, I mean, Pavel speaks about that. He has videos about that topic as well. And I hope I don't say something or I didn't misunderstand anything. But basically, as long as they just use it for internal purposes, for pure internal testing stuff, that's totally fine. But they are not allowed to give that modified version out to any other customer, to any client or whatsoever. Yeah. So just for internal stuff, they can do whatever they want. You can also take the code, you modify, or like Darren, basically, you took ExpressLRS, changed something in the code, how the arming channel behaves, and uses just for himself.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to disclose the code at this point.
I see. Okay. I see.
Just to use it for himself. So that's basically the point. And yeah, but I think the chances are good that they will agree the release to under GPL v3, and then we have 2 really awesome features coming. But I don't want to announce anything and hype everything up because.
And you wouldn't even feel inclined to just mention what it is, right, Mark?
Let's say we have let's say a safe, but basically 2 very important safety features that are better than the variants that Autopilot use.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
That's just raised far more questions than it ever answered.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. We will talk about that probably in the next Ring Talk. And I also recorded some footage already just for preparation in case I get the go. But yeah, it will be interesting. Has something to do with geofencing and landing. Let's say it that way.
Do you want me to get you out of trouble, Mark, and change the subject slightly?
Yeah, we can change the subject, of course. That's good.
Something that's been added as a pull request into INAV 7, which is hinting at a new product, is Maytech are adding more power levels to their 1.3 gigahertz VTX tramp telemetry stuff. So they're looking at adding, I think it's a 1 watt 1.3 analog VTX. So that's something that's coming for people flying 2 watt.
2 watt 1.3.
Yes.
What?
Yeah, 2 watt 1.3 gigahertz analog VTX.
That seems to be a case of because they can and not because they should.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just keep in mind for the Apollo 11 moon landing, they used 5 watt transmitters to transmit video signals from the moon to Earth and back.
So to the moon is getting closer.
Yeah. I think at one point maybe we have to talk to who's that guy from BBS Space. Can't remember the name.
I know he.
Say again? Yeah, the BPS Space YouTube channel, who builds his own suborbital rocket right now with his own rocket flight controller and stuff like that. We should talk to him, so maybe maybe he can send then an INAV rover or something to the moon.
It'd be INAV 10 Lunar Edition.
Yeah. That would be nice. In the chat, that sounds nice. Grumpy or no, to the freaking moon. Yeah, to the moon. Yes, but also used high receiver dishes. Yes, of course, Caroline, that's absolutely true. They used the deep space network that was built for that purpose back then, with like 15 or 20 meter dishes. It's a bit of a difference. But sometimes it's really interesting how our F signals actually work. I mean, the further you go, the less spreading you have with additional distance because of that inverse square rule. We just see that with some RC link systems that just show the RSSI, just as an example with R9, that you go out like 1 kilometer, you have 70 to 80%. You're 2 kilometers, you're around 70. You go 3 kilometers, you're at 65. And then it takes forever to go down and basically stabilizes more and more the further out you go until it starts to drop rapidly at one point. When the sensitivity limit is reached. I'll pass, give me Voxnay digital FPV. Yeah, I think you can find shop links on Google, I guess. Good. What else? Oh, with the VTOL stuff, we might also get new mixer possibilities, I guess. I'm not sure what Shota actually did in the mixer capabilities right now, but we are able to have many different VTOL configurations, like, as I mentioned before, tailsitter or tricopter VTOL, quad VTOL, a quad +1 VTOL with a with completely fixed props and just an additional pusher motor. So to use all these with the given timers that we have on the flight controllers, I think there are some fancy changes that Shota might have made to give us more flexibility in the mixer setup overall, even on normal fixed strings maybe.
Yeah, possibly. I've not really looked into it. I mean, that the actual pull request is mixer profile to open the possibility for VTOL. So it's a lot of it is sort of about the mixer. I mean, from what we've seen recently in INAV fixed wing group, it would be nice if active logic conditions was used for the motors as well. That would be something that's quite nice. Someone was asking for that to switch differential thrust on and off, for example. So just for a standard aircraft, it would be quite cool.
Oh yeah, that's true. Differential thrust is also a thing. Maybe we should look into in the future, because right now it's no one knows how to tune it properly. So how much of the available thrust do you give each motor? Like, do you set a 0.1, 0.2, 0.15 yaw mix into the motors? What pits to start with for the yaw control? How to not overdo it, because if you have too much yaw input on the motors, you will just stall the plane. You just put it into a spin. So yeah, I think there's also some work needed. Oh, and by the way, Grumpy, it's good that he is in the chat right now. He complained about my default pits in INAV, because all of his right rings he sold, he get complaints by INAV users that after the maiden, if you go high and after auto tune, if they go full throttle, they start to oscillate on the pitch axis in acro mode because the P is too high.
So what he's saying is the planes he sells are too fast.
Yeah. He asked me to change the pits, but we have a few planes actually that I know of. He also says his AR900, even my AR900 does this on default pits. I mean, it flies nearly 200 kilometers per hour, so it is a pretty fast setup with big control surfaces.
Maybe yes, AR Pro does. That's got pitch oscillation. Mine does anyway, at full throttle.
Oh, but with the new motor.
No, yes.
Yeah. So what's your top speed?
No idea. I don't look. I just.
Okay. Because
it's probably close to 100 miles an hour.
Okay, yeah, I think that's the difference, because with my with the stock setup, you're around 110 kilometers per hour, so you're at 150, 160. Yeah, small planes that are very fast and powerful, or bigger planes with very big control surfaces, a lot of authority, like the mini drags, they can oscillate on the default pits, and then you just reduce P a little bit, or you use TPA to clean them out. But the default pits are not there to make the planes fly perfect. They are just defaults to get the plane in the air. And the main reason why the P values are relatively high for fixed strings is that people are able to use auto launch with the given low rates that are needed to keep bigger planes stable. We could, of course, reduce P and then use higher rates by default with higher feed-forward values to also get auto-launch to work. But then you're running into problems that your angle mode, just when cruising, can also already start to oscillate. Or big planes with more than 1.5 meter wingspan, they will just start to oscillate or can even get completely out of control. So I would rather see a plane just doing this when you give full throttle than having a 2-meter craft going into position hold or phase safe before fully tuned and spiraling into the ground because of bad pit values. This is basically the reason why they are as they are. Yeah. And right now, I don't know anyone who had a crash so far or massive issues with the defaults.
Nah. I mean, to be honest, it's the same with a lot of things in INAV. You have to err on the side of safety. There's lots of discussions on GitHub and Discord about why doesn't things work like this, or why doesn't it work like that. One of them was failsafe has like a X number of seconds timeout or a delay. Why can't we do that with disarm? And it's like, because if you disarm, it could be cutting someone's hand. So it's got to be on the side of safety for everything.
Yeah.
So that's why everything's set up the way that it is.
Yeah, we have so many safety features in there, and safe values for different things, just to avoid any accident with the default configuration. And if anything is changed or disabled, then it's the responsibility of the pilot, and no one can blame INAV for that anymore. Especially the thing with like reducing the detection sensitivity for auto launch or shaking for auto launch. If the pilot does that and cuts his hand, it's not INAV's fault.
I shouldn't wank the plane off.
Yeah. I could make a joke, but that's not appropriate here.
That's what I just did.
I mean, nah, not that. If you rank your plane, you won't be able to rank later. Yeah. Okay, now I have to make the video FSK 18. So good. This about the defaults. Anything in the chat at this point? Not really.
Pilot brings up a good point that it could be cheap servos. Cheap servos could be slow, which is not going to help. But no, it's more likely going to be just the PIDs. But yeah, optimizing the whole setup is a good thing, regardless.
Speaking of cheap and slow servos, the slower your servos are, the higher the chance of oscillation is actually if your PIDs are high. Because if you have higher PIDs, the PID controller basically expects a faster response on the plane. And if the servos are just slow and the plane takes too long to react to any output change to the mixer, this can also wind up and start oscillations. So yeah, if you can ramp up your P value, especially, that means you have a pretty fast, pretty good servos and a very robust and stiff airframe.
Leslie's just beating you
as well. Sorry.
No, go for it. Yours was a more valid point. Mine was
I was just going to say, would running a higher voltage on your servos help?
If the servos can do it, of course, because then they will be faster and stronger. But the servo has to be able to hold the voltage without burning up, of course. Even the one thing, or one important thing, is also the servo control frequency. By default, the PWM signal for servos is at 50 Hertz. Many servos, especially digital servos, can do higher update rates. And that means from the start of the signal change until the servo starts moving, the time can be lower. So this can affect the PID controller as well, but not as much as the general movement speed of the servo itself.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and Henrik's just confirmed that the servos that he sells with his planes are fast, and he runs his on 8.4 volts. So the servos that Henrik is selling for those kits should be really good. And we know what Henrik's like with servos. So it's not going to be shit.
Yeah,
he does love his servos, doesn't he?
If Henrik says they're good, they're good.
I think one thing I never really realized, because I always thought that's maybe a issue with certain planes, but I'm not sure if the drags are actually affected by this. But I see that on the AR900, on the AR Pro, and on the baby AR Ring, they have an interesting behavior, even on manual mode. If you pitch up very fast on the stick and then center it very fast, they always bounce back a little bit. There's like a small zone where they can move very easily, but then they have to push really hard to get around. Like, how can I explain that best? Like if you rapidly, or if you would put pitch on this on the switch, for example, and if you rapidly pull the stick back, they basically snap the nose up and then make their normal turn rate on the pitch axis. And I have a feeling that's based on that pure flying ring design, that if they fly straight, the control surfaces are basically in some kind of low pressure zone where they move in, so they have less authority. But as soon as you change your pitch angle, as soon as you pitch up, they start to push against a denser or faster airstream, and then they get more authority before they really can bite. Maybe that's also a point, because this definitely affects the pit tuning. If I fly with the AR Pro with too high pits, I just throttle up, or I go into a dive in a completely straight line. It's totally fine, unless I slightly touch the stick and basically give it a little notch, and then it starts to oscillate. It does not do that without that stick input. So the pits might be also affected by that. That you basically have to kickstart the oscillation, because the authority is lower when you fly in a straight line. Not sure if that's the case on mini directs as well.
Interesting.
My guess is that Sorcerer is actually too slow to catch up the oscillation. This is maybe possible. But on the other hand, I mean, slow servos can get an oscillation faster because the slow reaction, because they don't react to the pit loop inputs as fast. I think maybe more from the integra term. But the fast servos, I think they can start to over oscillate or induce oscillations even more if the pits are too high, while the slow servos, they settle down quicker. They are more, because the start and the stop of the acceleration is slower. Maybe that makes them settle down a little bit more. Okay. Anything else? I managed to raise the P
to do a top 10 servos list, don't we?
Yeah, Grumpy. Hey, that's a job for you. Next month, Spring Talk, you make the top 10 list, and then we can talk about it.
Yeah. There we go. We've got a guest already for next month.
Acropilot. I managed to raise the P to 30 with PTK servos and corrections of TPA after Marc's help. 30 on a fixed string is impressive. Acropilot, what plane is that? Is that a mini drag? Would be interesting to know. And yeah, something I also mention not often enough, I think, is if you... This is a difficult point in fixed string tuning, and especially with TPA. If you have Copter TPA basically holds your pits on a flat line, constant as they are set, up to a certain throttle position. And then the pits start to get reduced linearly to full throttle. That's how the TPA works on copters. On fixed strings, this is differently. On fixed strings, the pits are as set at the breakpoint location only, and then if you lower the throttle, the pits get boosted, and if you raise the throttle, the pits get reduced because the airspeed changes. The problem with that is if you tune your pits in the level flight based on you tune your TPA in level flight based on your throttle, so you have constantly the same reaction no matter if you fly fast or slow. This can give you a good TPA tune, but then if you cut the throttle and you go into a dive without motor input, you gain airspeed and you can get really fast with some planes, especially with heavy setups or, for example, with hotliners. And then you get a problem because you have the boosted pits at a high airspeed, and this can cause massive oscillations. And that's also something I have witnessed on some planes. So what I usually do is, after I do the TPA tuning, just to have that curve set up properly in level flight, then I go at a safe altitude, vertical down, dive without throttle, and notch my roll and my pitch input to see if I see any oscillations. If I then see oscillations, then I go down with the P or with the I term a little bit, usually with the P term only, to get rid of them. And if that is done, you have your proper P term, you have your proper TPA, and then maybe redo the auto tune as well, because then the feed forward value also adapts to that based on that TPA. I think that's worth another video to explain that properly. But yeah, this is basically a more advanced method of the TPA and PIDFF tuning in INAV for fixed wings. That might help, especially in very powerful setups.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see TPA changed to use the virtual pitot rather than using throttle.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. But I think we still need some kind of throttle-based factor into that, especially because GPS has some delay. We have only our speed based on GPS horizontally, but we have the real-time speed vertically based on the barometer. So this needs to be taken into account. If you do a sudden dive, you have an instant speed increase in real time based on the air pressure. But if you accelerate in level flight, it takes 1 or 2 seconds for the GPS to keep up. And then the virtual pitot also has this lag at the end.
I think the kind of accelerations we're talking about, that amount of lag time isn't really a problem. And either way, it's still a lot better than throttle pit adjustment, because all you're doing with throttle pit adjustment at the moment is you're basically detuning it to allow for the inaccuracy. So, you won't have to detune it as much at the very least. Even if you had, let's say 5 seconds of lag and that's too much, the worst outcome is that you detune it the same amount, and the potential outcome is that you'd have to detune it much less. So. Yeah,
that's a good point. That might actually work. And I think it might be also an idea to enable the virtual pitot by default in INAV 7. Just in the because there's no downside if you have it enabled.
No.
Yeah.
It's even right now it's basically just a informal thing for the OSD or maybe for the programming. But beside that, it has no effect on the flying behavior at all. So it should be set to virtual by default. Or didn't we speak about that? That the disabled feature or the disabled option gets removed at all?
I think we mentioned it, but yeah, is there any? Well, I guess disabled would probably be good for quads potentially.
Yeah,
I figured it was only there to reduce CPU usage.
I know. Really affect the CPU by a lot. I mean, that would be 0.5% or so.
I agree, but why wouldn't you have it enabled? I mean, the worst thing that could happen is you have it enabled and you just don't have it on your OSD. It's not like it's
yeah.
It doesn't affect anything else in its current implementation. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. Definitely something we should look into, and we can. Changing the fixed wing presets is actually just a few clicks, so even I can do that. Okay, so the first hour is over. I'm not sure if we need to do the full 2 hours today because it's really hot in here actually, and I cannot even turn off the fan, and people in the stream might even hear it.
I can't hear it.
Yeah, Skype has a separate noise cancellation.
See.
In the chat, can you hear Marc's fan?
I see the bar moving of my microphone sometimes, so they must hear it. Grumpy, another reason to get a proper airspeed sensor. yeah, if you want something more on your plane to brake on landing, then it's a good reason. Yeah, indeed.
As far as I understand, even if you have an airspeed sensor, INAV still won't use that in any way other than for the OSD at the moment. So, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right now, yes, that's true. Oh, by the way, I just
Surely
remember
it should
that
use it for anything it uses the virtual for, though, like wind speed.
I don't think it even uses it for wind speed. The last time I looked into it, at least.
Was that 6.0?
It might have been 2.0 for all I remember it.
There you go. I'm sure when all the wind speed was done, doesn't that use the virtual pitot for stuff? So
I'm
if
still
it
not
uses
sure.
the virtual, it should use the real one if it's available.
Yeah, I had some discussion in the comments in the fixed wing group with someone who also looked into the code regarding wind speed and the new navigation system updates in INAV 6. I'm still not sure if it actually uses it. One thing that is coming or might come now in 7.0, if Pavel finally merges it, is the Dead Reckoning GPS navigation.
That would be nice.
That can basically do full inertia navigation if your GPS is lost. It doesn't matter if it's jammed or if you lose connection or whatever. So INAV will for some time be able to navigate on its own and find its way back close to home. And this will, of course, only work with the airspeed sensor. It will work with the virtual one. But with the virtual one, you will only have the average wind speed. And based on that, an estimated airspeed. With the rear airspeed sensor, this is definitely more precise. So your plane can come back if your GPS gets jammed. So this is a feature where it makes use of for the first time. I think.
So did you say it was coming in 7, Mark?
Yeah, I think that's Roman. Who was the developer for that?
Yeah, I think it was Roman Lutz.
Yeah, he developed that. Actually, he started that to go into INAV 6. Yeah. Then he found some issues.
He wanted 2022.
Yeah,
so it's a year old tomorrow.
But it wasn't quite finished yet. He wanted to work on some things, so we didn't rush it because the feature cut was end of January. And then for 6.1, he found some more issues to optimize it further. But right now, he has updated the code to be INAV 7 master compatible, and he said it's ready. There are some people who have actually real-world flight tested it, and the chances are high that this will come with INAV 7 now.
So you were saying that would need a real airspeed sensor?
Yeah, and compass.
Yeah. So would that factor in any throttle control using real airspeed?
No. Throttle control is still completely pitch angle based at this point.
Okay.
So you don't need a real airspeed sensor. The virtual airspeed will work, but you have to have some kind of airspeed data and a compass for that to work. Yeah. But the throttle is still pitch controlled. And the altitude, of course, based on barometer, because you cannot jam a barometer.
Yeah.
Wingy thinks FPV my perfect wing lol. Okay. It was a mention. Good. Any other feature you have in mind, Darren? You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry, eating sweets in the background. Yeah, I think most of it we talked about last time, to be honest. There's just been little things added, but there are some bigger stuff in the pipeline. Like course hold and cruise mode for multi-rotors. I know this is a fixed wing thing, but that's in the.
Yeah, I remember. Isn't that even finished already? It wasn't, Pavel announced that, right?
Yeah, it's still being tested. I think there's a couple of little things to iron out, but it probably will be ready for 7.
I feel like this is the kind of feature that might make me actually start flying multi-rotors. Like, I do fly multi-rotors, but not really for fun, only for, various tasks and whatever. I feel like this, finally makes multi-rotors fun for cruising. Yeah.
I mean, and this also could bring Pavel's motion control project back to life. Basically, if you can use like with the DJI Avata, if you can use the throttle stick or throttle trigger as a speed control for cruise mode or something. Maybe. So yeah, just as an explanation for everyone who hasn't heard about it, Pavel I think it was Pavel who programmed that. A cruise mode for multi-rotors where
it's Breadoven.
Breadoven, okay. Breadoven was that. So you basically first you're hovering, and based on GPS you can enable cruise mode, and your quad will fly forward continuously, and then you can like turn left, turn right, climb, and descend. You can basically fly a quad like a fixed wing in cruise mode. That's the whole purpose of that mode. Pretty interesting actually for long-range quad flyers, because they can maintain a constant speed where the quad is most efficient. That's basically also what DJI does with their drones, with their camera drones. They say you have the highest battery runtime at a specific speed where the aerodynamics of the frame and the propeller balance each other out, something like that. So yeah, sounds interesting, and might be also cool for some kind of wing chasing quad or so.
yeah.
That'd be good.
That one's there's going to be INAV, so it'd be nice to get that on there.
Yeah,
might buy a quad again. It's been about 2 years.
Yeah, Grumpy Old Nerd has a nice 7-inch quad with the I think it was the Bang God frame on INAV with a 9 U-Blocks 9M something GPS module that works also very well, and he has the Voxnay Pro camera on it, and I was able to look through it the first time in Meppen. Holy cow. This is actually real night flying stuff, and with the quad like that in cruise mode might be fun to explore some areas, especially if you are flying at night where you cannot really see the ground and you cannot guess how high you are. Just enable the cruise mode and fly forward. Like with a fixed wing at a safe altitude.
Chronicle's got some excellent night video from the walks now.
Not all of them have been uploaded either.
No, they've never been uploaded ever. But, yeah, fantastic image at night.
It is very good. Funny enough, I was having a chat. I don't know if it was on the INAV page with Adam G, FPV, and because he was flying with the Polar. DJI with the Polar camera, and then someone else was flying with the I think it was Paul that was flying with the Walks now, and he still reckoned that the Polar was better, and but I found the Pro to be fantastic. I've bought a couple of them now. In fact, the big VTOL I've got down there, which I've still yet to fly in anger fully. I've just put the Pro on that because it just does everything so well. But no, nighttime with that is very good.
I have to say I have not seen the image of the Polar cam through DJI goggles myself yet, so I can only see videos from different or compare videos from different people that are not at the same time at the same location. But I would say the Polar night image is about on the level of a Caddx Rattle or Rattle 2, maybe. And the Voxnay Pro Cam blows the Rattle 2 out of the water. Definitely. we were at we were standing on Grumpy's tent. He had powered up his 7-inch. I just walked through his goggles. He pointed up to that massive cooling tower with the world map on the side. It was pitch black outside. When you looked up, even without we were standing in a dark area, you could not see the map. The whole tower was just black. And then I looked through the goggles. I could see the map. I could see the landmarks again on it. So it has a better light sensitivity than with your bare eyes, by far better. And the rattle is about the same level as with your bare eyes. You can boost the brightness, and then you get the smearing image where it uses long exposure time to get something brighter, but that doesn't work really well for actual flying. So the Rocksnake Pro camera is definitely superior to that.
Your next purchase then, Mark?
Yeah, actually, I am planning to upgrade just a few of my planes to Rocksnake. And the other ones will all get the Pro camera very likely. I thought that the Pro camera is bigger, has a bigger lens or bigger body, until I saw that when Grumpy showed it to me that it's the same size. It could even fit in the T1, and that would be cool to fly the T1 at night, especially with the LEDs.
Yeah, it's what I've got on my T1 Pro.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying I've ever flown from my garden at night, but you could, if you had a T1 VTOL with a night camera, take off and fly from your garden at night.
Wait, but how would you know that, Matt, if you haven't done it?
Theory, purely theoretical.
Purely theory. Okay, purely theory.
Yeah, he just watched the goggles and held it up to test it, how it looks, you know?
Yeah. Matt actually rented a cherry picker so he could, test the movement in his garden.
Repeatedly.
Repeatedly.
Okay, good. Any other topics you want to discuss, guys?
I was just going to ask, Mark, with the one of the things I do quite like, I'm going to mention the RG pilot word, but with the VTOL with RG, what's quite good is you can set a waypoint mission that features all the transitions from VTOL to fixed wing automatically. So I literally can set a mission with your start point and then your flight that you want to take, and then your landing point as well. And literally as soon as you arm, it will take off, transition into fixed wing mode, fly the waypoints, come back, retransition and land, and then you just disarm. You've touched nothing else other than arm and disarm, and it's quite a nice little feature. I just wondered if that might ever come in as featuring VTOL transitions into a waypoint mission.
You can already do that as soon as the feature comes out.
Yeah,
we have the user actions for waypoints, where you can then just use the programming in INAV to switch the flight mode mid-flight. And with the user actions, you say user action 1 is triggering into VTOL mode, and user action 2 is triggering into fixed wing mode. And as soon as the waypoint is reached, this trigger is hit, and it transitions and goes as a fixed wing, for example. That's totally possible with INAV.
So that would feature an auto takeoff as well.
That's a good question, actually. I think, if you are if you are flying a quad, you arm and then you activate a mission. Yeah, it takes off by itself. So if you are in quad mode, it should act like a quad. So yeah, that's possible. Excellent,
that's good.
The only thing about even with landing, of course, it will not. Oh wait, I think when I remember correctly, and I talked to Shota, if you trigger a landing, no matter if it's a waypoint landing or a return to home landing, it will always do that in VTOL mode anyway. So yeah, okay. that should perfectly work fine.
Excellent. That's what we like to hear.
Of course, it will not be, or to have this transition, it will not be a native feature at the beginning, maybe later.
Yeah.
You have to do it in programming. It's like a sticky function that overrides the VTOL channel when in mission mode. So it's like there are 5, 6, 7 lines in the programming.
Oh, if that,
if at all.
Yeah, you just any waypoint that's user action 1, so that'd be 1 line, and then just a sticky to disable it when you go back to the user action 2. So yeah, it's just maybe 3 or 4 lines. It's not really a lot.
I think that should be doable.
Get presets in INAV for programming. So like, you know, user-made programs that you can just apply to yours. Obviously, like the inputs and outputs may not be right, but it gives you a template for how to do what may be a reasonably complex function. You know, and you
this is what YouTube channels are for.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, sharing the stuff makes sense. And Darren, you have your fantastic little tool on your website where you can move the programs around from one starting line to another starting line. So actually, yeah, we could make some simple programs and maybe put them on the website.
It would be quite easy to have a database of simple programming things. Yeah.
Yeah, like our VTX control, for example.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
sounds like a good idea. Okay, any other topics from you guys? Just realized I have no lights on and I'm sitting here in the dark now. And my lamp is not plugged. Okay. Good. Yeah, any other questions? Bluefish, Glenn just showed up. I think he entered the boat. He's on the ferry right now, back to the island. Your stakes were already featured. Yep, they were. Okay, no topics.
Glenn didn't have any servos cut this time.
Nah, he crashed his AR Pro by himself yesterday evening, I think. So unfortunately, the last one he built, the newest one, crashed it into the concrete of the racetrack. So yeah, shit happens. Okay, guys, I think at this point we wrap it up. A bit shorter ring talk than usual because we didn't have too much topics today. Yeah, it was fun as always, and see you all in the next month, I guess.
Yep. Third Sunday of next